I stood frozen in the dark hallway, my back pressed against the cold wooden wall as Ashley's voice rang out from the living room, each word sharp and clear. He's too old to be worth anything anymore. It's time, Mark. Once he's gone, we take everything. I didn't move, didn't dare breathe too loudly, letting those words crash into me like a verdict already signed. My heart pounded wildly, but my feet felt nailed to the floor, where the planks I'd laid myself 30 years ago now bore witness to betrayal. Mark let out a low chuckle, that slimy voice I'd never trusted. He's nothing but a burden. The nursing home will handle the rest. This house, we can sell it for a fortune. I closed my eyes, their words twisting deeper, like a dull knife slowly cutting into flesh. On the nearby wall hung a Christmas photo from years ago. Ashley, just 8, sitting on her mother's lap, me standing behind with a proud smile. Linda, my wife, gone 7 years now, her gentle eyes seemed to stare straight at me, as if asking, "Is this the daughter you sacrificed everything to raise?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry and raw. "He doesn't matter anymore," Ashley continued, her voice cold, alien, not the daughter I'd once cradled. "We need to act fast, before he's lucid enough to do something we don't want." I opened my eyes, peering through the narrow door crack. Ashley lounged on the sofa, a glass of red wine in hand, while Mark spread papers on the table, a house sale plan glowing under the yellow lamplight. Each word, each number on those pages hammered into my heart. I stepped back, my trembling hand gripping the wall, taking a deep breath to steady myself. Linda's final words before she closed her eyes echoed in my mind. "Don't let anyone look down on you, Tom." I heard Ashley's laugh, the rustle of paper as Mark tapped his finger on the profit they dreamed of, and I knew one thing: they'd pushed me to the edge. But in this darkness, where they thought me weak, I admitted to myself that a fire was rising, not a fire of pain, but of resolve. They wanted a useless old man, waiting to fade away, but they'd soon see I was never too old to be worth something. I sank into the wooden chair by the hallway, as Ashley and Mark's laughter faded, my chest heavy as if crushed by stone. The house fell silent, save for the dry ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room. I looked around, everything painfully familiar. The worn rug, frayed at the edges, where Linda used to sit and embroider every afternoon. The long dining table in the kitchen, still scarred from Ashley's childhood knife scratches, carving the first letter of her name. I remembered the years, the moments when I poured my life into building a family, only for my daughter to now see me as some outdated object to be discarded. Memories flooded back like an unstoppable tide. I saw myself 30 years ago, in cement-stained work clothes, walking into our tiny apartment with a cheap birthday cake in hand. Linda held 4-year-old Ashley, who ran to hug my legs, her eyes sparkling. "Daddy's home. Did you bring cake?" I smiled, sweat and dust still clinging to my hair. But in that moment, I felt like the richest man alive. I'd promised Linda that no matter how tough things got, our daughter would never want for anything, and I kept that promise. The first tuition bills for Ashley's private high school were still tucked in my desk drawer. I remembered nights working back-breaking shifts at the construction site, my calloused hands barely able to grip a pen to sign my paycheck, all to ensure Ashley had nice clothes and new books each term. When she was 16, I worked extra months on a distant job site to buy her a used car so she could get to school and chase her dreams. I still recalled her joyful smile the day I handed her the keys. "I'll always be grateful, Dad," she said, eyes shining, but those promises were now dust. Ashley's wedding was the pinnacle of my sacrifices. She wanted a lavish ceremony at the city's grandest hotel, though I knew our finances couldn't handle it. I started to suggest scaling back, but when she sobbed, I gave in. I took out loans, worked overtime, sold my old trusty pickup to cover the costs. At the reception during our dance, Ashley whispered in my ear, "You're the best man in my life, Dad. I'll never forget." Yet now that same mouth declared me worthless, an obstacle in her way. My eyes stung, but I refused to let tears fall. Linda's words came back. "Tom, don't let sadness bring you down. Let it fuel your strength." I looked at her framed photo on the shelf, her kind smile cutting deeper into my wound. On her deathbed, I held her hand in the hospital, hearing her final plea, "Take care of Ashley. Don't let her want for anything." I did with everything I had, but in return my daughter plotted to sell the house, filled with her mother's and my memories, to shunt me off to what she sugarcoated as a rest home. I stood, walking down the hallway, each step straddling two worlds, a past full of love and a present steeped in betrayal. In Ashley's old bedroom, the pale pink paint remained, her desk piled with old books, photos on the wall capturing her childhood smiles. I'd stayed up countless nights, helping her with math, built her a small desk to fit perfectly by the window. It all felt ironic now. The daughter who once called me her hero now callously cut me out of her life. I returned to the living room, the yellow lamplight casting a cold glow on the wooden floor. Mark's forgotten house sale plan lay on the table, a circled figure $950,000. A hefty sum, but could it account for the sweat I poured into building this place with my bare hands? Could it repay the thousands of sleepless nights I worked overtime to give my child a better life? My fists clenched, knuckles whitening. The mix of pain and rage surged through me. I saw clearly now. The memories I'd once cherished were now evidence of betrayal. I sat, staring at the family photo on the wall. In it, a younger me, a radiant Linda, and a 10-year-old Ashley grinning wide, clutching a Christmas gift. The photo trembled in my vision as my hands shook. I whispered to myself, "They think I'm done, but not yet. Not ever." In this house brimming with memories, I realized my love had been exploited, my sacrifices betrayed, and in that moment, another thought took shape, a path Ashley and Mark could never foresee. I sat longer in the dark, listening to the clocks ticking and the wind howling outside, my mind reeling between betrayed memories and harsh reality. But then my gaze fell on scattered papers on the coffee table, and something felt off. A thick folder lay half-hidden, bearing the Wells Fargo logo from Salem. I stepped closer, heart pounding as if sensing what I'd find. Each page detailed mortgage loans, and at the bottom a familiar signature stood out. Thomas Miller, but scrawled and fake. My blood ran cold. It was my signature, forged. I pulled up a chair, flipping through the pages. This house, built with my calloused hands and 30 years of sweat, had been used as collateral for a $150,000 loan. My heart clenched. I'd never signed these papers. I'd never agreed. My mind flashed to Mark, his smug boasts about bank connections. I'd brushed it off as bravado. Now I knew it was a veiled warning. I rushed to the basement where I kept my safe with personal records. My hands trembled as I turned the key, heart leaping as I opened it. Neatly arranged files, passport copies, birth certificates, property deeds were there, but some were out of order. Recent bank statements were missing. A $20,000 chunk from my retirement fund was gone. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead. Someone had siphoned my money, and I knew it wasn't a mistake. Sitting motionless in the dusty basement, I recalled Mark loitering in my study months ago, claiming to help organize papers. I'd felt uneasy, but wanted to trust the man my daughter chose. Now it clicked. He'd planned this step by step, to steal everything I had. I shut the safe, my heart restless. Another doubt crept in. Did Ashley know? Or worse, was she involved? I wanted to believe she was just Mark's pawn, but her words echoed. He's too old to be worth anything. Once he's gone, we take everything. We, not just Mark. My daughter said we. I stumbled back to the living room. Outside, streetlights cast my shadow on the wall, long, old, frail. I saw myself as a ghost in the home I built, rendered irrelevant by those closest to me. I wanted to scream, smash the furniture, but silence became my ally. Silence let me observe more, remember more. My phone buzzed on the table. A bank alert. New transaction, $3,500 withdrawn from savings. I reeled. I hadn't made that transaction. Frantic, I opened the banking app, scrolling through recent withdrawals. Several small amounts over months, subtle enough to go unnoticed, totaled over $20,000. Someone knew how to bleed me slowly, knowing I rarely checked, trusting that money was for my future. I collapsed into the chair, hands gripping my temples. Everything Linda and I had saved for our final years was gone, stolen by those meant to be my only support. In that thick darkness, I felt not just the sting of betrayal but heard Linda's whisper from memory. "Tom, I know you can overcome anything. Don't let them take your dignity." Her voice snapped me awake. I stood, took a deep breath, and grabbed the bank folder. The evidence was in my hands. Forged signatures, secret loans, vanished money. It wasn't just ingratitude, it was a calculated plot. And the culprits were none other than my daughter and her despicable husband. I set the papers down and walked to the small study. In the third drawer, under old files, I pulled out a worn leather notebook, used years ago for construction job notes. I opened the first page, grabbed a pen, and wrote, "Plan." The next lines flowed as if long brewed: gather evidence, meet David, check all accounts, trust no one. I looked up, my gaze landing on Linda's framed photo on the shelf. In the dim light, I swore she was smiling. I closed the notebook, my hands still trembling, but not from fear, from a surge of resolve coursing through my veins. The darkness in the study no longer weighed on me. It felt like a stage curtain about to rise. I knew that to preserve my dignity and the years I had left, I had to act, to fight back. This wasn't just about an old man being dismissed. It was a battle for justice, and I wouldn't let them win. I flipped the notebook to a new page, writing in bolder strokes. Step 1, find allies. The first name that came to mind was David Carter. My old friend retired after 30 years as a lawyer, once my neighbor when Ashley was little. David had seen me slog through mud at the construction site every day, shared countless beers with me after exhausting shifts. More than anyone, he understood my kindness and my stubbornness. And I knew if anyone was sharp enough to help me expose the forged documents, it was him. The next morning, I drove my old pickup to David's small house on the edge of Salem, its gray-tiled roof and porch brimming with flower pots, tended by his wife. David opened the door in an old sweater, glasses sliding down his nose. He was surprised to see me, but when I placed the folder with the forged signature on his table, the surprise vanished, replaced by grim focus. He read each page, occasionally shaking his head. "Tom, this is serious forgery. If you want, I can take this straight to the police." I clenched my fists, replying softly, "Not yet. I want them exposed at the right moment, before they can spin more excuses." David studied me, then nodded slowly. "What's your plan?" I gave a bitter smile. "I'll rebuild from scratch, and I'll make them realize they misjudged me." That afternoon, I began driving around town, searching for a place to start over. After a few days, I found an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Salem, its iron door rusted, walls stained, but positioned near the main road. Standing before it, I recalled my younger years when, with just a few wooden planks, Linda and I built our first home. That fire in me hadn't died. I negotiated with the landowner, an old man eager to sell quickly, and used a secret savings Linda had urged me to keep as a down payment. Signing the contract felt like giving myself a chance at rebirth. The repairs began. By day, I played the leisurely old man, going to the market, cooking, exchanging brief calls with Ashley to keep their suspicions at bay. But at night, I donned an old jacket, drove to the warehouse, switched on my flashlight, and worked like a young carpenter. I cleared rotting debris, replaced the iron door frame, re-roofed the place. Each nail driven into wood, each plank raised, was a silent vow. I wouldn't let them steal what I'd spent a lifetime building. Along the way, I reconnected with familiar faces in town, young men who'd worked for Mark but were fired for speaking up. One, Jake, a 26-year-old who'd apprenticed as a carpenter, now jobless and bitter toward Mark. When I shared a vague outline of my situation, his eyes lit up. "If you need help, I'm in." Gradually, others joined. I wasn't just fixing a warehouse. I was building a team. We jokingly called it the Rebirth Workshop. I started designing a small business plan, handcrafted furniture paired with warehouse rental services. With my construction skills, I could renovate the space while the younger crew handled online marketing. For the first time in years, I was so busy I forgot the sting of being dismissed. At night, the smell of fresh wood and the sound of hammers echoed in the old warehouse like a song of resurrection. But my revenge wasn't just about building a business. I knew to truly defeat Ashley and Mark, I needed ironclad evidence to make them feel the weight of loss. David suggested opening a separate account, funneling business profits there, while meticulously saving proof of the illegal loans. He said, "The hardest blow is letting them think you're finished. Then at Christmas, show them everything." His words sent a jolt down my spine. In the weeks that followed, I lived as two people. By day I was Thomas Miller, doddering old father, forgetful, sometimes faking a shaky hand at dinner to make Ashley think I was fading fast. By night I was a different Thomas, one forging a small empire in the shadows, logging every number, every receipt, every email. I deliberately left false trails, so if Ashley hired someone to follow me, they'd only see me wandering parks, grocery stores, or church. No one suspected that a few blocks away, I was rebuilding my life. One night, while sifting through papers Mark left behind, I uncovered another secret. He'd used my name to guarantee a gambling debt. A confirmation sheet bore the faint stamp of a private casino in Portland. My heart chilled, but then a grim satisfaction rose. The more evidence I had, the surer my plan would succeed. I photographed it, filed it in my final weapon folder. I finished my notebook entry at dawn. They think I'm weak, but I still have my mind and my hands. I'll show them I'm far from worthless. And when the curtain falls, they'll stand before the family, the town, and bear the shame I'm carrying now. Outside, snow began to fall, blanketing the newly repaired warehouse roof. I stepped out, breathing in the cold air, my calloused hands clenched tight. The revenge plan had officially begun. And I knew this time I wouldn't back down. I never thought, at an age when people say you just wait to grow old, I'd start building a new business. But every time I recalled Ashley's cold words, my hands seemed to gain strength. The old warehouse on Salem's Edge transformed week by week, from a pile of rubble and rusted iron into a woodshop glowing through the night. I named it Miller Woodworks Rentals, a simple name tied to what I knew best, carpentry and real estate. Every night, I'd arrive, turn on my flashlight, breathe in the scent of fresh wood, reminding myself I was still alive, still worth something. I didn't do it alone. Jake, the young man Mark fired, was the first to join. He worked hard, his eyes gleaming as he gripped the wood plane I handed him. Then came Maria, a single mother skilled in interior design, and Sean, a former soldier and builder struggling to find work. They all knew Mark. All had reasons to despise him. I didn't need to explain much. Just said, "We're starting over," in silence. No one can know. They nodded. In their eyes, I saw what I thought I'd lost. Trust. At first, we did small jobs, fixing old tables, crafting bookshelves for Maria's regular clients, renting out part of the warehouse for storage. But money started trickling in. I opened a separate business account. Every transaction transparent. David, my lawyer friend, drafted airtight contracts to prevent anyone from forging my name again. He chuckled. "Tom, you're living two lives, one by day, one by night," I replied. "Exactly. And the night is where I found myself." The woodshop work brought back an excitement I hadn't felt in years. I remembered my youth, building our first home with Linda, each hammer strike a step toward our shared dream. Now those strikes echoed again, but this time for my own resurrection. As my weathered hands pushed the saw, as the sharp scent of resin filled my lungs, I felt young again, as if age was just a shell others had placed on me. But I wasn't just building a business. I was building a secret fortress. I installed security cameras around the warehouse, added electronic locks, bought a large safe for financial records and evidence against Mark. I kept 2 sets of books, one for the business, one for revenge. In the second, I detailed every step, every piece of evidence, forged signature copies, casino debt papers, retirement account withdrawals. Each page was a bullet loaded into my clip, waiting for the day to fire. One night, after finishing our first custom-ordered cabinet, Jake looked at me, grinning. "Tom, I've never seen anyone work as hard as you. People say old age means you're done, but watching you, I know they're wrong." I just smiled, but inside it was like a fire. Outside, December winds howled through bare trees. I stood at the workshop door, watching snowflakes fall, clutching my leather notebook. The final line I wrote that night was a vow. They think I'm old and useless, but in the dark, I'm building something they'll never expect. And on Christmas Eve, the darkness will turn to light, shining straight on their sins. I'd built a business in the shadows, a foothold to prove to myself I was never worthless. But a business alone wasn't enough. To truly take down Ashley and Mark, I needed a network, a tight web of evidence, people, and strategy. I started with what I had: the old notebook, the documents I'd collected, and the young crew working with me at the shop. But slowly that circle grew, and my revenge plan was no longer just a dream in the dark. It was becoming a sophisticated system. David, with his decades of legal experience, became my right-hand man in law. He reviewed every bank statement, every forged contract Mark left traces on, nodding, "With the right timing, this is enough to put him in court." I told him, "Not yet. I don't just want him in jail, I want him and Ashley to face the whole family, the whole community, when the truth explodes. David understood and began compiling a secure file, password protected on a computer, with hard copies locked in the shop's safe. But I needed more than a lawyer. I needed information. Jake introduced me to Eric, an old friend working security at the bank. A burly, cautious man, his eyes betrayed his contempt for Mark. I've seen him bring fake documents here, thinking he's clever, Eric said, voice low. If you need it, I can get transaction logs, internal camera footage. Discreetly, of course. I nodded. Part of the truth was already clear. Now I wanted it all. Eric became my eyes in the dark. Meanwhile, at the shop, Maria used her design skills to build an e-commerce website promoting our wood products. But she did more. She helped me create a fake social media profile as a young investor looking for Salem real estate. With it, I contacted Mark's business associates, quietly gathering intel. The results came faster than expected. Mark owed tens of thousands to a Portland contractor. I saved every message, adding them to the truth about them file. Then late one night, as I sorted evidence in the shop's office, my phone buzzed. An unknown number, a woman's hushed voice. Mr. Miller, I'm a friend of Ashley's. I don't know who else to tell, but Ashley's not just planning to sell the house. She's seeing another man, not Mark. I was silent for a moment, my heart stinging. The woman later revealed as Claire, said Ashley often met a young lawyer at a downtown cafe, exchanging documents, sometimes sitting too close for just business. I didn't want to believe it, but Claire's words burrowed into my mind. My daughter, not only betraying her father, but possibly her husband too. The next evening, I went to the cafe, Claire mentioned, sitting in a corner, hidden behind a newspaper. I saw Ashley arrive. She was dolled up in a long coat, sitting across from a young man. They swapped files, laughed softly, then his hand rested on hers. I gripped my coffee cup, the bitter taste choking my throat. The evidence I needed wasn't just forged signatures or debts. It was the rot within this family. I quietly snapped photos, my hands trembling, but my gaze cold. Back at the shop, I spread out the papers, photos, and bank logs on the table. The scattered pieces formed a complete picture. Ashley and Mark didn't just see me as a burden, they schemed to drain my money, forge documents, accrue debts, and betray each other. Yet to the community, they wore the mask of a perfect, successful family. I gave a wry smile. That facade wouldn't last long. I wrote in the leather notebook, Step 2, expand the net. The new plan was for Jake to tail Mark, Maria to dig deeper on social media, Eric to supply bank data, and David to prep legal documents. I called it the Counterattack Network. A small group, but each held a piece of the puzzle. I was no longer alone. Sometimes I sat alone in the shop, listening to the buzz of the saw, yellow light spilling over wood shavings. It was ironic Ashley thought I was old and useless, but at the moment she underestimated me most. I was weaving a network stronger than anything I'd ever had. Come Christmas, when the tree lights twinkled, I'd pull back the curtain and expose everything. I closed the notebook, slipping the photo of Ashley with the young lawyer into a thick envelope. The fire in me was no longer just anger. It was a torch lighting my path. My counterattack network was formed, and from here every thread would tighten around Ashley and Mark until they had no room to breathe. On a gray Saturday afternoon in Salem, the wind howled through the pines outside, like a warning of an approaching storm. Ashley called me around 5, her voice detached, but laced with fake sweetness. Dad, Mark and I are coming over for dinner tonight. We need to talk seriously about the future. I knew exactly what future they meant. Selling the house, shoving me into a nursing home, splitting the cash. I smiled into the phone, replying softly, Sure, I'll prepare. They had no idea their every word was fuel stoking the fire of my resentment. I set the table as Linda used to, with a roasted chicken, some salads, and a bottle of red wine ready. I deliberately used the old dinnerware, the kind Linda kept for special occasions. When Ashley walked in, she frowned. Dad, these plates, they're so outdated. I just smiled. They still work fine. Mark glanced around, his eyes probing as if the house was already his. You should replace the flooring soon. The wood's old. If we sell, it'll need a touch-up to fetch a good price. I set the chicken on the table, keeping my voice calm. Sell? I never said I'd sell. They sat down, and Ashley began her family meeting, as she called it. She straightened a printed sheet in front of her, her red lipstick mouth set. Dad, Mark and I have discussed it. You living alone in this big house is a waste. Evergreen Nursing Home has great services. You'd be well cared for. Selling this house, we could get nearly $1 million. I think it's the most sensible choice. I picked up a piece of chicken, chewing slowly to suppress my anger. You said we, but whose name is on this house? I asked, staring straight at Ashley. She froze for a moment, then glanced at Mark. He cleared his throat. You signed the bank loan papers, didn't you? With that much debt, keeping the house is pointless. I set my plate down, the clink of metal on porcelain sharp in the silence. I never signed any loan papers. All you have is a forged signature. The room fell heavy. Ashley flushed, forcing a laugh. Dad, come on, don't make a scene. I just want what's best for you. I looked at her, remembering the little girl who clung to my neck during thunderstorms, trembling as she called, Daddy, don't leave me. Now the woman before me, my own flesh and blood, was coldly planning to discard her father like an old piece of furniture. Mark cut in with an arrogant tone. Listen, you have two choices. Sign the sale papers. We split the money. Or you resist, and trust me, we have ways to make this happen without your consent. He leaned back, pouring more wine, as if victory was already his. I stayed silent for a few seconds, then let out a dry laugh. Ways to make it happen. You mean forging my signature again? Mark's face darkened. Ashley jumped in. Dad, you're talking nonsense. Don't forget you're old. Your mind might not be as sharp anymore. Her words hit like a punch to the chest. I stared into her eyes, feeling the world crumble. But instead of collapsing, I stood taller. My voice lowered, each word clear. You're right, I'm old. But my mind still remembers every penny I sacrificed for you. Every sleepless night, I worked to give you everything. And how do you repay me? You say I'm too old to be worth anything. You say I should be cast aside. Is that the filial piety you preach? Ashley was speechless, her face red, her hand trembling around her wineglass. Mark jutted his chin, trying to stay calm. Stop playing the victim. You're just making this harder. In that moment, the room felt suffocating. I saw Linda's image at the table's edge, her gentle yet stern eyes urging me to stand firm. I took a deep breath and said slowly, You want me gone to get the house, the money. But remember this, everything here was built with my blood and sweat, and I've never handed it over to anyone. Ashley burst into tears, her voice breaking. You don't understand. I just want an easier life. I'm tired of always worrying about you. I looked at her, a mix of pain and bitterness flooding me. Worrying about me. Have you ever truly worried about me, or just worried about how to take the most from me? A heavy silence blanketed the table. The chicken grew cold, wine sloshed in glasses. Finally, Mark slammed his hand down, spilling wine. Enough. If you don't sign, you'll face the consequences. He stood, towering, trying to intimidate, but I didn't back down. I rose to meet him, eyes unblinking. You think I'm scared? You forget how many winters I've survived. I've braved blizzards, built this house with my own hands. A fraud like you can't make me tremble. Ashley grabbed Mark's arm, trying to pull him back, but he kept glaring. I saw surprise in his eyes. The first time this old man he despised dared to fight back. Ashley trembled, her lips moving but no words coming out. I sat down, my voice eerily calm. You've said your piece. Now it's my turn. If you dare step foot in this house again to make demands, I'll consider it trespassing, and I will act. This is my house. You're just guests. The silence stretched a few beats longer before Mark yanked Ashley up, dragging her to her feet. He threw back one last line. You'll regret this. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone in a room thick with the smell of spilled wine and cold meat. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the dark wooden ceiling. The humiliation was no longer all I felt. Something bigger, deeper stirred, a steely resolve that dinner had sealed the start of a war. I grabbed my leather notebook from the drawer and wrote a new line. Step 3. Prove it in front of everyone, no longer in silence. Outside, the wind howled, rain pelting the windows, but inside, a cold calm took hold. They wanted me to crumble at the family dinner table, but I'd stood up, and next time, when they still dreamed of calling me too old to be worth anything. I'd show the world just how strong I still was. I sat in the silent house, after that humiliating dinner, the yellow lamplight casting my shadow on the wall like a lone figure. But the shame was gone, replaced by something else, a cold, clear-headed resolve. That dinner they thought would be their persuasion had become the prelude to war, and I knew I couldn't delay any longer. If they were gearing up to strip me bare, I had to strike first. I had to accelerate my plan. The next day, I arrived at the workshop earlier than usual. Jake, Maria, and Sean were hard at work assembling a custom kitchen cabinet. I paused, watching the morning light hit their sawdust-covered faces, and saw something I'd long forgotten: loyalty. I called them over, speaking clearly. We're not just making furniture anymore. I want to expand. I want bigger contracts. I want Miller Woodworks and Rentals known across Salem. They exchanged glances, then nodded. I saw determination spark in their eyes. Maria suggested, we could take on rental property renovations. Salem's got a lot of investors in that market now. If we do well, word will spread fast. Her idea aligned with mine. I immediately invested in more equipment, hired a few part-time workers. The profits from our first contracts covered new materials, and the cycle began. My secret business grew daily, like a seed sprouting underground, waiting to break into the light. Alongside the business, I kept building my case against Ashley and Mark. David helped me compile a master file, in the safe, divided into sections. Forged documents, debts, infidelity, photos, unauthorized withdrawals. Each had backups. I told David, when the time's right, we'll reveal everything, in front of family and community. He smiled faintly, patting my shoulder. Tom, you're turning your anger into an airtight case. I've never seen anyone do this so meticulously. But I knew I had to do more. I needed to keep Ashley and Mark complacent, unaware that beneath the frail old man act was a cunning plan. So I leaned into the role. I pretended to misplace keys, dropped my wallet in the supermarket, even fumbled with the gas stove when Ashley was around. I overheard Mark whisper to her during one visit, "He's getting senile, easier to handle." I acted oblivious, but inside, I laughed. The trap was closing. One evening, checking the workshop's security cameras, I spotted a stranger lurking near the door. I stepped out slowly, and as expected, it was a private investigator. He quickly hid his camera, but I'd seen enough. I didn't make a scene, just smirked. Get a good shot. But remember, not everyone is what they seem. I turned away, leaving him stunned. I knew Ashley had hired him, and I knew I could use that. The next day, I deliberately drove to an abandoned lot, stood there for half an hour, then left. The PI likely reported back, and Ashley would think I was just an old man with odd habits. Meanwhile, the workshop ran at full capacity. Money flowed into the separate account, and my file grew thicker. That same week, Maria handed me an envelope. Inside were printed messages between Mark and a Portland contractor. Mark was begging for a debt extension, promising cash after selling the Salem house. I read them, my fingers trembling, but not from fear. I held the key to shattering his excuses. I gave a copy to David, instructing him to keep it safe. Time passed. Christmas neared. I knew Ashley was planning a grand party at my house. As always, she thought it'd be the moment to announce the house sale to relatives. I thought differently. Christmas Eve would be my stage. A week before Christmas, I sat in the workshop office, yellow light spilling over neatly stacked files. I wrote in the leather notebook, Step 4. Accelerate, secure big contracts, ensure cash flow, finalize evidence, prepare the reveal for Christmas Eve. I looked up, through the fogged window, watching the first snowflakes fall. They drifted slowly, gently, but together they'd blanket the ground. My plan was the same, small, seemingly harmless pieces that, when combined, would bury Ashley and Mark in a storm they couldn't escape. I closed the notebook, stood, and realized I was no longer the bumbling old man they scorned. I was the one controlling the board. And on Christmas, when the tree lights twinkled, I'd flip the final card, showing the world, you're never too old to reclaim your worth. I knew the plan had reached a point of no return. That humiliating dinner had sealed off any retreat, and Ashley hiring a PI only confirmed they thought I was just a senile old man, waiting to sign the house away. But they didn't know that with each passing day, I was quietly fortifying my position. And now, only one step remained. The move to end the game. In the workshop office, I spread out the files on the table. The forged signature documents, bank transaction logs from Eric, photos of Ashley hand in hand with the young lawyer, and Mark's messages begging for debt extensions. Each piece was a knife, but together they formed a perfect blade. I photographed everything, storing them on 3 USBs. One stayed in the safe, one went to David, and one I hid where no one would suspect, behind Linda's old photo frame, flipped backward. That picture sat in the living room, right under Ashley's nose every time she visited. The thought made me chuckle dryly. They schemed to erase me while the evidence of their betrayal stared them in the face. David came to see me one late afternoon as snow thickened on the roads. He adjusted his scarf, sat across from me, his eyes sharp. "Tom, are you sure about revealing everything on Christmas Eve? Once you do, there's no going back. Family, friends, the whole town will see. They'll lose all face." I nodded, voice firm. "Exactly. I don't just want justice, I want them to feel the shame I felt. And I want everyone to see their true colors." David paused, then placed a hand on the table. "Then I'll have a junior lawyer ready at the office. If needed, you can sign a lawsuit right after the party." But I didn't want to stop at legal action. I wanted a fatal blow, something they'd never expect. So I crafted a fake will. I had Maria print it with fonts and paper mimicking the real one to fool Ashley. In it, I left everything to my daughter. The house, money, even the secret company they didn't know about. I included subtle errors, enough to lure a greedy mind. Then I quietly placed it in my bedroom drawer, knowing Ashley would snoop during her visits. Sure enough, a few days later, as I pretended to doze in my chair, I heard the drawer creak open, soft, hurried footsteps. I cracked an eye, seeing Ashley clutch the papers, her eyes gleaming, lips curling into a smile. She stuffed them into her bag, then returned to the living room, asking innocently, "Want more tea, Dad?" I suppressed my rage, nodding faintly. Inside, a cold smile formed. The fish had taken the bait. Mark was sinking deeper. One afternoon, he came by, pretending to check on me, but I saw sweat beading on his forehead when his phone rang. A creditor. He stepped outside to take it, but I followed to the porch. I heard him whisper, "Relax, just a few more weeks. Once the Salem house sells, I'll pay in full." I cleared my throat behind him. He spun around, face pale. I gave a faint smile. "It's cold, you should come inside." He nodded awkwardly, but his eyes flashed with resentment. That night, I wrote in the leather notebook, "Final move, fake will, real evidence, Christmas stage." I pictured the scene, relatives gathered, Ashley and Mark gleeful, expecting the house sale announcement, while I placed a large gift box on the table. When opened, instead of sale papers, it would reveal a thick file. Each page would be a bomb, detonating mid-party. I'd start with the fake will Ashley stole, then flip the board with the real one, transferring all assets and the company to a charity and those who stood by me. And I wouldn't forget to play the recording from that earlier dinner when Ashley said, "He's too old to be worth anything." Everything was ready, awaiting the moment. Outside, snow fell heavily, blanketing Salem. I sat in the workshop, listening to the wind whistle through the door cracks, my hand brushing the smooth wood of a newly finished cabinet. I thought of Linda. If she were alive, would she be sad? I'd turned Christmas into a trial. Then I heard her whisper in my memory, "Don't let them take your dignity." I took a deep breath, closed the notebook. The game was nearly over, and the old pawn they despised was about to become a queen. The final move was in my hand. On Christmas Eve, I'd play it decisively, without mercy. Christmas Eve arrived in the chill of snow and the quiet tension filling my small Salem house. I woke early, not to decorate the tree, like the old days with Linda and young Ashley, but to prepare my stage. The white tablecloth was ironed flat, Linda's cherished vintage dishes set neatly. Above the fireplace, her photo smiled gently, as if watching everything. I whispered, "Linda, tonight you'll see it all." Ashley and Mark arrived half an hour before dinner, designer coats dusted with snow. Ashley's eyes scanned the room as if it were already hers. She spoke with forced cheer. "Dad, I invited some relatives and close friends. Tonight will be special." I nodded, smiling meekly, letting my hand tremble as I poured wine to reinforce my frail old man act. In my vest pocket, the USB with the evidence waited. Family and friends trickled in, bringing gifts, desserts, wine. Laughter filled the air. The tree sparkled, but I saw the eager glint in Ashley and Mark's eyes. They weren't here for Christmas. They were here for the house sale announcement. I watched silently, like a tiger in the shadows waiting for its prey to step into the trap. The meal was lively, people chatting about work, kids running around, while I sat quietly, offering occasional polite smiles. Mark couldn't hide his impatience. He sipped wine constantly, clearing his throat as if urging me. Finally, Ashley set her glass down, stood, and smiled sweetly. Dad has something to say to everyone, don't you? About the future of this house. The room hushed, all eyes on me. I took a deep breath and stood. I've prepared a Christmas gift this year, I said, voice calm. I stepped into the next room, returning with a large wooden box, placing it on the table. The room fell silent, only the crackle of the fireplace breaking the stillness. I opened the box, pulling out a thick stack of papers tied with a red ribbon. Ashley held her breath, eyes gleaming. Mark leaned forward, eager to see. I slowly placed the stack before Ashley. This is my will. Her trembling hands opened it, her eyes flashing with satisfaction. I saw her lips curl into a smile. But before she could speak, I continued. That's the will you took from my bedroom drawer a few days ago. I knew, and I let you take it. Gasps rippled around the room. Ashley's face paled, her lips trembling. Dad, what are you talking about? I locked eyes with her, voice firm. It's a fake, and tonight, before everyone, I'll show the truth. I pulled another file from the box, opening it, the papers rustling coldly. This is my forged signature on bank loan documents. This is proof of Mark's casino debts in Portland. This is the transaction log of money taken from my retirement fund. And this, I held up the photo of Ashley hand in hand with the young lawyer at the cafe, is what my daughter does behind her husband's back. The room fell deathly silent. Whispers began to ripple. Mark lunged forward, face flushed. Enough. You're making this up. I flicked the USB in my hand. This contains copies of everything. David, my lawyer, has another. One click, and all of Salem will know. Mark shrank back, sweat beading on his brow. Ashley burst into tears, sobbing. But I saw no remorse in her eyes, only fear of exposure. I continued, voice calm but resonant. You thought I was old, senile, useless. You planned to sell the house, shove me into a nursing home, wait for me to die to claim the inheritance. But you forgot I spent a lifetime building all this. And I'm not weak. I pulled out the real will, stamped with legal seals, and read aloud. I, Thomas Miller, leave all my assets, including Miller Woodworks and Rentals, to the Salem Community Fund, and those who've worked alongside me. My daughter, Ashley Miller, and her husband, Mark Harris, will receive nothing. Murmurs erupted fiercely. An aunt stood, shaking her head. Ashley, how could you do this to your father? A cousin glared at Mark with contempt. No wonder you always bragged about money. It was from fraud. I stood still, feeling the tension like a noose tightening around Ashley and Mark. Mark roared, lunging for the file, but Jake and Sean, my workshop boys, stepped in, blocking him. I said nothing, just stared at Mark, eyes icy. He faltered, then stormed out, slamming the door. Ashley stayed, head bowed, trembling, her choked sobs echoing like the howling wind outside. I scanned the table, everyone's eyes on me. I said softly, but clearly, Christmas is a day for love and family, but it's also a day for truth to shine. And tonight the truth has come to light. Outside, snow fell in a white veil, but in my heart, a heavy burden of years lifted. This fateful Christmas Eve had changed everything. I'd stepped from victim to master of my fate, and Ashley, my daughter, would never forget the moment she was exposed under the cold light of truth. The room remained thick with silence. After I read the real will, relatives' gazes pierced Ashley like invisible blades, while Mark had fled, leaving his wife to slump over the table in tears. But I wasn't done. What had just unfolded was only the prelude. I looked at the wooden box still on the dining table, opened it, and pulled out another thick, neatly bound file. Curious eyes followed. I took a deep breath, voice steady but resonant. You might wonder how I stood strong until today, betrayed by my own daughter and son-in-law. The answer is here. For 2 years, while everyone thought I was just a retired old man, I secretly rebuilt a career. I held up the file, legal stamps and financials clearly printed. This is Miller Woodworks and Rentals, the company I and my allies built. Murmurs spread across the room. I opened the file, spreading out pages, business licenses, client contracts, profit reports. We turned an old warehouse on Salem's Edge into a woodshop, crafting furniture and renting small properties. This business isn't just surviving, it's thriving. Last quarter, we made $240,000 in profit. I paused, scanning the table. Faces were stunned. Ashley looked up, eyes red, voice breaking. Dad, when did you do this? Why didn't I know? I gave a faint, no longer bitter smile, just cold. Exactly since you started seeing me as a burden. You didn't know because I didn't need you to, and because I wanted to prove one thing: value doesn't come from age, but from will. I went on. Ashley once told Mark I was too old to be worth anything. But tonight, before you all, I declare at this age, I've built a company that supports 10 families, giving jobs to those Mark cast aside. I pointed to the door, where Jake and Sean stood quietly, eyes gleaming with pride. These are my real family, because they value, not just demand. The room erupted in gasps and astonishment. An uncle slapped the table, exclaiming, Tom, you're incredible. We had no idea you pulled this off. The aunt beside Ashley shook her head, scolding her. Aren't you ashamed? Your father, at his age, built a business, and you only schemed to take from him. Ashley sobbed, face buried in her hands. But I felt no pity. I pulled a photo from the box, holding it high. It showed me, Jake, Maria, and Sean in the workshop, hands dusted with sawdust, smiling brightly. These are the days I truly lived, holding a hammer, a saw, seeing a product finished. I knew I still had strength. And looking at the people beside me, I knew I wasn't alone. I set the photo down, then opened the prepared laptop. The screen displayed our company website, polished wooden products, client lists, and a local article, Salem Woodshop, a retired engineer's revival story. I turned the screen for all to see. Some relatives covered their mouths in shock. Ashley sat frozen, eyes vacant, as if seeing a world she'd never imagined. I concluded, voice firm, everything you see tonight is the truth. And my final declaration, I'm not useless. I was never too old to be worth something. On the contrary, I've proven my value in silence, now revealed before you all. Scattered applause broke out, growing louder. I stood tall, chest swelling with pride. For the first time in years I felt truly alive, not as the old man they scorned, but as a man in control of his destiny. Outside, Christmas snow still fell, glinting under the lights. But in my heart, winter had melted. On this fateful night, I'd reclaimed everything: honor, faith, and the value of a lifetime. The applause hadn't fully faded when Mark stormed back in. The door flew open, and he entered, face red from wine and rage, coat speckled with snow. His eyes darted around, landing on the laptop displaying Miller Woodworks and Rentals, then the exposed files. He roared, "This is all staged. He's just playing the pity card to keep the house." People gasped. Some relatives stood to protest, but Mark pointed at me. "You couldn't have done this. You're old. You can't even remember where you parked your keys. Don't act smart with us." I didn't respond, just pulled another USB from my pocket, setting it on the table before him. "This holds all the evidence of what you and Ashley did. Forged papers, recordings, photos, one click, and you won't just lose face, you'll lose freedom." Mark paled. He tried to argue, but I turned on the laptop speaker, playing the recording from that dinner weeks ago. Ashley's voice rang clear. "He's too old to be worth anything. Once he's gone, we take everything." The room froze. The fireplaces crackle like a drumbeat of tension. Ashley shot up, face ashen. "Dad, you secretly recorded me." I looked at her, voice like steel. "Not secretly. It's evidence. And now, before everyone, answer me. Did you and Mark scheme like this?" The air was suffocating. Everyone waited. Finally, Ashley choked out, voice faint but audible. "Yes, it's true. I did it. I just thought you were old. You didn't need much anymore. I was wrong." Whispers swept the room. Some shook their heads. Others sighed in disappointment. An uncle stood, pointing at Ashley. Your father raised you with all his sweat and tears, and this is how you repay him. Shameful. Mark tried to cut in, shouting. She just followed my lead. I planned it. Blame me. But I looked at him, eyes blazing. Yes, you were the instigator, but Ashley chose to go along, and now both of you will face the consequences. Ashley broke down, clutching her face. Dad, I'm sorry. I got swept up. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted an easier life. I clenched my fists, torn inside. Part of me was still her father, but another part had hardened from betrayal. I replied slowly, each word a cut. You didn't just want ease, you wanted to steal what I spent a lifetime building. You stopped seeing me as a father, only an obstacle. The room fell silent. Mark panted. Ashley slumped in her chair, her sobs echoing in the heavy air. I stood tall, voice firm. This isn't a place for forgiveness. This is where truth is laid bare, and tonight everyone knows who you are. David, my lawyer friend, stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder, addressing the room. All this evidence is enough for court, but the final call is Tom's. He decides how to proceed. I scanned the table, seeing pity and respect in their eyes. I turned to Ashley, voice cold. You confessed. From now on you have no claim to me. Not a cent, not a scrap of land, not a room in this house. Ashley choked, hands clutching her dress, trembling. She tried to speak, but seeing the contemptuous stares, she only bowed her head, tears falling. Mark shot me a venomous look, then grabbed Ashley's arm, pulling her up. Let's go. We don't need to stay another minute. I didn't stop them, saying only this door will never open for you again. They left, their footsteps creaking on the old wooden floor, the door slamming shut. The room sank into heavy silence again, but this time it wasn't the silence of humiliation. It was the silence of a truth unearthed. I sighed, sitting down, my hand resting on Linda's photo by the fireplace. Her final words echoed in me. Don't let anyone look down on you. Tonight, I'd kept that promise. And I knew, from the moment Ashley confessed, everything had changed forever. I sat in the quiet room after Ashley and Mark left, the slammed doors still reverberating like an earthquake's aftershock. Relatives and friends were still reeling. But in me a cold fire burned. I knew tonight wasn't over. I had one final blow, the fatal strike. I stood opening the wooden box again, pulling out 2 files. One was the fake will, the one Ashley had stolen, clutching it like a treasure. I held it up, voice clear. This is what my daughter found in my bedroom drawer. I let her take it because I wanted to see what she'd do. And sure enough, she thought it was real. She believed everything would be hers. But I set it down, then raised the real will, stamped in bold red. This is the truth. My assets will go to the community fund, and those who've worked with me these past 2 years, not a penny for betrayers. The room exploded in chatter. A few aunts stood, clapping as if witnessing a dramatic finale. A cousin shook his head, sighing Ashley brought this on herself. Too greedy. I wasn't done. I opened the laptop, projecting a video from the workshop's hidden camera. Me, Jake, Maria, and Sean working, crafting products. Then I switched to a recording of Mark's call with his Portland creditor. Once the house sells, I'll pay in full. Don't worry, his voice echoed. A cold verdict. People gasped. Some exhaled sharply. And I stood tall. Not only did they scheme to steal, they planned to turn my life's work into gambling chips. If I'd stayed silent, they'd have taken everything. David stepped up, holding authenticated files. These documents are legally copied and stored. If needed, I'll file them in court tomorrow morning. His voice was firm like a final gavel strike. I faced the room, words clear. Tonight, I didn't just expose betrayal. I cut ties with those who scorned family. Ashley confessed. Mark's been unmasked. This is the end of their farce. Applause broke out, strong and decisive. I looked around, seeing not pity for a frail old man, but respect. I closed the file, feeling a weight lift from my chest. Linda's voice echoed. You did it. The fatal blow had landed. It didn't just destroy Ashley and Mark's plans. It restored my most precious asset, the honor of a father. A man never too old to be worth something. After that Christmas Eve, the family was never the same. News of the dinner-turned trial spread faster than winter winds. Within days, all of Salem buzzed. People talked in cafes, markets, even outside church. Ashley and her husband tried to scam her own father. Unbelievable. Each whisper was a knife to the reputation Ashley and Mark had built. The Portland creditor, hearing my leaked recording, tightened the screws on Mark. His phone rang constantly with blunt threats. A week later, I heard his luxury car was repossessed, his downtown apartment sealed by the bank. His arrogance crumbled overnight. Ashley faced heavier fallout. Her company demanded explanations when the scandal broke. Colleagues who once admired her turned away. She lost both reputation and standing. On the streets, she kept her head down to avoid neighbors' scornful looks. Some whispered loudly enough for her to hear, "Ungrateful daughter." Greedy wanted to shove her dad into a nursing home to take his house. Meanwhile, Miller Woodworks and Rentals became a Salem sensation. People didn't just talk about the scandal. They spoke of the useless old man who quietly built a business. Orders poured in. Young families came, buying products and shaking my hand in congratulations. Jake, Maria, and Sean held their heads high, proud to be part of it. One afternoon, as I sorted papers at the workshop, a 12-year-old boy approached with his mother. He said shyly, "Thank you, sir. My dad's been jobless for a while, but hearing your story, he said he won't give up." I squeezed his shoulder, warmth spreading through me. I realized my revenge wasn't just about punishing Ashley and Mark. It inspired others. Ashley came to the house once, standing on the porch in cold rain. Her face was gaunt, eyes sunken. She called softly, "Dad, can we talk?" I opened the door, looking at her long and hard. But her words with Mark, "He's too old to be worth anything," still lingered. I replied curtly, "It's over, Ashley. Take care of yourself." I shut the door, leaving her in the rain. My heart ached, but I knew it was the only way to keep my remaining honor. Mark vanished from Salem for a while, rumored to be hiding in another state to dodge creditors. Ashley lived on, clinging to a few friends. But every time she looked in the mirror, she surely saw herself that Christmas Eve, the moment she was exposed. I kept working at the shop, mornings with coffee alongside David, evenings by the fireplace, reading Linda's old journal entries. I realized my revenge was complete. Its consequence wasn't just the downfall of two greedy souls, it was my own rebirth. When the next Christmas came, I hung a small sign outside the workshop, "Never too old to start over." Passers-by smiled, nodded. I smiled back, knowing it wasn't just a slogan, it was the truth I'd proven with blood, tears, and shame turned into strength. A year after that fateful Christmas Eve, each day felt like a new gift from life. No more sleepless nights haunted by scorn, no more bitterness from hearing my own daughter say I was too old to be worth anything. Instead, I had work, loyal companions, and a pride my old age had reclaimed. Miller Woodworks and Rentals became more than a company. It was a small Salem icon. The local paper called it an inspiring tale, an old man, abandoned by his children, rebuilt from scratch, proving his worth. Customers came not just for woodwork, but to shake my hand, saying, "You give us faith." Once a woman in her 70s gripped my hand, eyes teary. I thought this age was just for waiting. "You showed me we can still start over, still dream." I nodded, and in that moment, I knew my revenge had transcended personal bounds. It became a message for others. Ashley rarely appeared in town. I heard she moved away, trying to rebuild quietly, though my heart still ached for the little girl who once hugged my neck. Calling Daddy, I held no more resentment. I saw it as a scar, a reminder that trust has limits, that family isn't an excuse for trampling. Mark vanished from news, likely still running from his death's shadows. That was the price for those who thought greed could outwit conscience. I chose a different path. Each morning I sipped coffee in the workshop office, sunlight streaming through the glass, glinting on meticulously polished wood products. I saw Linda in those rays, her smile, her gentle voice saying, "Don't let anyone look down on you." I'd kept that promise. And more, I turned it into strength, making my final years resonate like a song of defiance. I was never too old to be worth something. I no longer hoped for Ashley's return or apology. I didn't need it. Forgiveness doesn't always mean opening the door again. Sometimes it's letting go of hate to move forward, and I did. I released the pain but kept the lesson. Love must come with respect. Filial piety isn't for bargaining, and a parent, though old, deserves to be seen as human, not an obstacle to ambition. Walking through town, people greeted me, eyes full of respect. I was no longer old man Miller, rumored for the nursing home, but Miller from the woodshop who turned shame into strength. When asked my secret, I just smiled. Don't believe what others label you. Trust your hands, your heart, your will. The next Christmas, I hosted a small dinner in the old house. No crowded relatives, no whispers, just me, a few workshop friends, and Linda's memory. We raised glasses, not to celebrate victory, but to remind ourselves that every pain can become opportunity with enough patience and strength. As the tree lights twinkled, I opened my old leather notebook, flipping to the first lines I wrote: gather evidence, meet David, check accounts, trust no one. I smiled. Those trembling words sparked this journey, and now I could close it with peace. I added a final line: never too old to start over, never too old to hold on to honor. The message I'd leave, not just for Ashley, if she ever read it, but for anyone hearing this story, is simple. When others say you're worthless, remember true value isn't in age, but in will. People may betray you, mock you, but with faith and determination you can rebuild a world, even with calloused hands. I closed the notebook, sat by the fireplace, flames dancing on Linda's photo. I smiled at her, heart light. The journey was over. I'd won, not just against enemies, but against the doubt in myself. Outside, snow fell quietly, but inside there was only warmth and an unshakable belief, never too old to be worth something. Thomas Miller's story, a father scorned by his own daughter, who schemed to put him in a nursing home to seize his house, isn't just a family tragedy, but a reflection of a simmering reality in American society today. We live in a country that glorifies youth, productivity, and material success, sometimes viewing the elderly as burdens. Ashley's cruel words, "He's too old to be worth anything," echo the plight of many older Americans, abandoned by their children or pressured into nursing homes. But what stands out is how Thomas responded. He didn't crumble, didn't let humiliation bury him, but quietly built Miller Woodworks and Rentals, a small business employing a community. This underscores a vital message: human value doesn't fade with age, it lies in will and the ability to turn pain into drive. In today's America, where many seniors still work or start businesses post-retirement, this story reminds us it's never too late to begin again. It also warns the younger generation: greed and disrespect for family, as Ashley and Mark showed, lead to losing both honor and future. The lesson for us is to cherish those who came before, to listen and respect them, for their experience and resilience can be invaluable inspiration. And for those feeling left behind, remember, like Thomas, you can prove your worth, not for revenge, but to reclaim faith and dignity. Thank you for joining this story of a journey to reclaim honor and prove it's never too old to start over. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories, and see you in the next video.